Welcome to today's presentation. Today we'll be looking at steps to successful entrepreneurship part 1. I'm your presenter, TUTOR MARSTON. In today's presentation, we'll look at the preamble, we'll look at the introduction to entrepreneurship, we'll look at requirements for successful entrepreneurship, we'll look at the concepts of entrepreneurship, we'll discuss the role of small enterprises in the economy, and also government policy on small enterprises. Today's presentation is basically a summary of the last 5 presentations that I did on entrepreneurship on my channel. It focuses mainly on the practical aspects of entrepreneurship. So before I continue, kindly subscribe to my channel, that is TUTOR MARSTON on YouTube. Subscription is free. Free. In our introduction, we are going to look at the definitions of entrepreneurship. The first definition is that an entrepreneur is a person who is able to identify business opportunities and obtain the necessary resources to initiate a successful business activity. Thus, as an entrepreneur, you must be able to scan your environment, identify what your community needs are, gather the resources, and then put the business into place. So that's the first definition. And the second definition is entrepreneurship is the process of creating, seizing an opportunity, and pursuing it regardless of the resources currently controlled or available. So it involves identifying what needs to be done and taking advantage or taking action and benefits from it. It is about an innovative action whenever you find yourself in a different situation. Let's now consider the advantages of entrepreneurship. First and foremost, you are a leader rather than a follower. So as an entrepreneur, you are a leader of your enterprise. Your work is to give guidance and make crucial decisions. And you must lead by an example. You must be example to your workers because they look at you to learn from you and they follow what you do. And the second advantage is that it is easy to implement your ideas. You are a decision maker, and so you don't have to wait for someone to come and implement your ideas. So in this way, your ideas will be implemented quickly as they depend on your decision only and on nobody else's decision. And the third advantage is creativity. You have the ability to be creative. There are no protocols for you to follow. So you come up with an idea and you implement it. The other advantage is unlimited potential income. When you run your own business, your income is unlimited. So the harder you work, the better, the more income you get. The other advantage is independence. When you run your own business, you become independent. You don't rely on anyone for anything. The other advantage is that you're able to take initiative and risks. When you work for someone, you rely on procedures, you don't take initiative. So, as your own boss, you use initiative to make decisions and you take risks. And last but not the least, you give orders to others. As an entrepreneur, it is your responsibility to give orders to others. And these orders must be effective. Don't just give orders anyhow. They must be effective orders. Orders that will make people work, and they should work freely. There are also disadvantages to entrepreneurship, like long, irregular working hours. As an entrepreneur, you want to meet your targets. You have goals that you have set up. So You are forced to work long hours, which are irregular, anytime you want to do something for your business. You also have broad responsibilities. You have a broad spectrum of responsibilities. Unlike wage employment, as an entrepreneur, you are responsible for almost all of the operations in the enterprise. Entrepreneurship forces you to take risks, because who's going to take risks for you if not yourself? You want to make decisions which are quick, and so you have to take risks to make those decisions. The other disadvantage is unstable and unsteady income. As much as the potential income is unlimited for an entrepreneur, it is not stable and it is not steady. Another disadvantage is that you are always involved in finances. This is one of the broad responsibilities that we mentioned that an entrepreneur has. As an entrepreneur, you must always be involved in financial decisions, because these decisions will affect the other areas of your business. The other advantage is uncertainty of your future. Uncertainty of your future, the future of the enterprise. Establishing a business itself is a risk move. The future of the business is always risk, because anything can happen that can hinder or can make the business go down. The other disadvantage, as an entrepreneur, learning never ends. People's needs and technology are always changing. Therefore, you need to keep yourself abreast with the changing technology and changing needs of the people. With regard to tasks, it is hard to delegate tasks as an entrepreneur. Most of the times, entrepreneurs want to do everything by themselves. This mentality causes many entrepreneurs to have a burnout as they overwork themselves. There are a number of requirements that an entrepreneur needs to fulfill in pursuit of entrepreneurship and small business management. These are referred to as internal and external factors. Internal factors are those factors that one can change or can eliminate. As for external factors, these ones you have no control over them. So all you can do about external factors is to adapt to them, or if you can't adapt, you avoid them. So instead of opening a business in an area where the factors are not conducive, since you cannot change them, you should decide to go and open elsewhere where you find the factors that are conducive for your business. Factors for successful entrepreneurship development. One, government incentives. We know it's not easy for a new business to be viable from the first day of operations. A business faces a lot of global competition. So, a new business needs nurturing in order to enable it to develop its markets and also grow sufficient sales to be viable. So, most governments provide incentives such as tax breaks, grants for plant, and grants for training personnel. So that's just one of the incentives. There are so many incentives that governments give. So when you want to open up a business, check what incentives your government gives and take advantage of those incentives. These incentives will help you to grow your business. Another incentive that you may find is education and training. Entrepreneurs need to be continuous learners. They need to update themselves about the external environment in which they are operating. The other factor is the market. Before you get into entrepreneurship, you must make sure that the market is sufficient. So you must do market research and marketing intelligence. So this will help you establish the critical market factors. The other factor is finance. Finance is the lifeblood of every business. A business without finance is dead. One of the important tasks in a new business development is to establish the amount and the timing of finance. A lot of businesses have gone under due to lack of finance. The other factor is good policy framework. The role of a policy framework is to provide a good working environment for successful development of entrepreneurship as a strategy for economic development. The concepts of entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship has become a major force in the global economy. Policymakers across the world have discovered that economic growth and prosperity lie in the hands of entrepreneurs. So this presentation will take you through characteristics that make entrepreneurs successful in their businesses. We turn our attention to universal personal entrepreneurial competencies. Number one, opportunity seeking and initiative. An entrepreneur seizes unusual opportunities to start a new business, obtaining finance, equipment, workspace, or any other assistance that he may need. He is an opportunity seeker who seeks to identify and select an attractive business opportunity. Where the rest of the world sees problems, the entrepreneur sees opportunities. Risk taking. An entrepreneur calculates risks and evaluates alternatives. They take actions to reduce risks and control the outcomes. A demand for efficiency and quality. An entrepreneur finds ways to do things better, faster, and cheaper. He does things to meet and exceed expectations. An entrepreneur must be persistent and committed. He takes action in face of obstacles. As an entrepreneur, you must take responsibility for the performance necessary to achieve goals and objectives. Information seeking. As an entrepreneur, you must personally seek information from clients, suppliers, and if possible, from competitors. Goal setting. An entrepreneur sets himself goals which are meaningful and achievable. They must also be challenging. These goals must be clear and specific. They must be both short-term and long-term. Systematic planning and monitoring. An entrepreneur plans by breaking large tasks into smaller ones. He must also revise his plans in light of feedback on performance or changing circumstances. The entrepreneur must also keep his financial records well and use them to make business decisions. An entrepreneur must be persuasive and networking. As an entrepreneur, you must use strategies that will influence and persuade others. If possible, Use key people as agents to accomplish your objectives. Independence and self-confidence. The entrepreneur seeks autonomy. He sticks with his judgment in the face of opposition. We turn our attention to the role of small businesses in the economy. Entrepreneurship and small-scale business sector are being emphasized in today's economy because their growth has been identified as a key factor in economic development of every country. So entrepreneurs are expected to exploit the country's raw materials to produce goods needed by their communities. Entrepreneurs can get raw materials from different natural resources endowed to us by God. So look at the natural resources from which entrepreneurs can exploit raw materials. The extent to which a country is endowed with natural resources can greatly contribute to the country's level of entrepreneurship. By their nature, natural resources are building blocks for entrepreneurial activities. Everything we see under the sun comes from the natural resources that are endowed with us by God. These natural resources are land resources, water resources, forest resources, human resources. What do we get from land resources? From land resources, we find farming there. We get clay for pottery. There's stones for minerals and gemstone mining. We get sand for glass and building. Also stones for cement and ultimately for building. And many more other things can be done from land. Water resources involves activities such as farming. We get reeds for mats and baskets, water for domestic use and construction, irrigation and agriculture, generation of power and energy, and so on. Under forest resources, there are activities such as sawmilling, wood and energy, manufacturing of furniture, honey production, collection of old fruits, flower plantation, and collection of herbal medicines. And human resources. This is the most important resource, as none of the activities above can take place without human resource. Human resource provides the skills, intellectual capacity, knowledge, and the effort and time. The list of entrepreneurial activities emanating from these natural resources is endless. So, as an entrepreneur, you must critically examine and exploit these natural resources, as these sources are sources of various entrepreneurial activities. We move on to the socio-economic role of small businesses in economic growth and development. There are various critical roles that small enterprises play in contributing towards economic growth and development. And these roles include: 1. Products and services. This is a fundamental economic role of small businesses. It is their role to make and distribute the products and services that people need. 2. Employment creation. Business ventures supplement government efforts in providing jobs. Even a micro enterprise with only 2 or 3 jobs play a very big role in contributing towards economic growth and development. 3. Government revenue in terms or in form of taxes. Small businesses contribute to national treasury through various taxes, levies, license fees, etc. Without these taxes and levies, governments would not be able to provide the social amenities required by their citizens. Foreign exchange earnings. Here, small enterprises that export their products and services contribute to economic growth and development through foreign exchange that they earn for their country. Technology transfer. It is through innovation and operations of small enterprises that technology is transferred from one place to another in every nation. Utilization of local raw materials. This is probably the most important function of small enterprises. Most small enterprises contribute to economic growth and development by adding value to local raw materials. This creates a substitution effect on imports of a country. Weakening monopoly. Monopoly in trade, industry, and business holding is most common in developing countries. So, growth of small business sector goes a long way in weakening the tendency of monopoly in a country. Let's now consider government policy on small enterprises. For small enterprises to develop, government must provide an enabling environment with a good legal framework. This will stimulate the sector growth by providing good conditions for growth. Let's turn our attention to policy instruments supporting enterprise development. The policy instruments supporting enterprise development are basically the manufacturing, industrial, commerce, and trade policies. So, as an entrepreneur, you must acquaint yourself with these policies for you to make informed decisions concerning your business venture. We now turn our attention to statutory obligations relating to enterprise development. So, as an entrepreneur, you also have obligations that you need to fulfill. Every business or enterprise has specific obligations to comply with as it runs its operations. These obligations include the following: the Trade Licensing Act. This act specifies various trading activities and regulates hours of business, licenses, and permits to be held for operating a business. Then we have the Employment Act. This act provides for the individual contractual obligations between the employer and employee, enforcement of contract of service, protects wages of employees, and controls employment agencies. Then there is Factory Act. The act provides for safety and healthy standards for welfare of employees who are working in factories and related undertakings. Then we have bylaws. These are enacted by civil authorities to organize and regulate the conduct of certain activities and business operations. So, entrepreneurs must know the bylaws concerning the sector in which they operate. Then there is the Industrial Relations Act. This act provides for collective bargaining, trade unions and employer associations, industrial relations court, settlement of collective disputes, and many more work-related issues. We move on to external factors affecting small business enterprises. External factors are factors that an entrepreneur has no control over. These factors can affect the business either positively or negatively, and hence offer opportunities or threats to the business. The external factors include the following: the economic factors. Factors such as high inflation, the monetary policy, the legal restrictions, unemployment rates, wage rates, demand and supply, fiscal policy, and many more. These factors will affect your business and you have no control over them. The other factor is demographic factors. Income distribution and occupation affect the business. Age and gender are other issues in the entrepreneurial propensity. The population density too affects the demand for products and services. Then the political and legal systems also affect your business. Religious practices. Example of religious practices is an area where the Christian beliefs and practices do not allow them to eat pork and pork products. So as an entrepreneur, you will not set up a butchery that sells pork and pork products. Otherwise, that will be the downfall of the business, because no one in that area will buy your products because they don't use them. They don't need them. Another factor is social cultural environment. The cultural values, norms, and the traditional practices of people have deep influence on consumers' preferences. There's also infrastructural development. Infrastructural development includes such things as power, transport network, and communications network, which influence the patterns of production and distribution of products and services. On the other hand, if infrastructure were not well developed, it would be difficult to start and operate a business in that place. Then we have technological factors. Technology is the way of doing things. It includes the skills an entrepreneur requires to have to produce and provide services, and the necessary machinery to be used. Technology development can contribute both opportunities and threats to the business. Therefore, an aspiring entrepreneur must acquaint oneself with both the potential opportunities and the threats fundamental to technological development. This marks the end of our presentation. Please note that subscription is free. Please subscribe to TUTOR MARSTON channel on the YouTube.